by step. It's important to have strategies when answering IELTS reading questions. So what is the best way to approach flowchart completion questions? Well, let's look at 4 steps that can help you to answer this question type quickly and successfully. These steps involve gaining a general understanding of the flowchart, then identifying the word forms needed for the gaps, scanning the passage for the keywords from the flowchart, and finally, reading intensively to locate the correct answer. Let's have a look at each step separately. Let's start with step 1. Once you have skimmed the reading passage, read the instructions in the question carefully and check the word limit. In other words, check how many words you can write in each gap. Then try to understand the general topic of the flowchart by reading the title and the various stages to see what is happening. And looking at the first and last stage of the flowchart is particularly helpful. As you are skim reading the flowchart, identify the main keywords that you could use to scan the passage. Here's an example of a flowchart completion question. Can you see the instructions? Your answer can have no more than 3 words and/or a number from the passage. Take a moment to look at the chart more closely. What do you think the topic of the flowchart is? Here's a hint. It begins with entering preschool and ends with starting work or going to university. So have you guessed that this flowchart shows different stages of an education system? Yes, you're right. This flowchart is based on a reading passage called the American Education System. It shows the stages that a student completes as they progress through this system. Once you have a general idea of the topic of the flowchart, you need to identify what word forms are needed for each gap. It is important to look at the words before or after the gaps. This will help you predict whether you need an adjective, a noun, a verb, or perhaps an adverb. So now look again at question 28 to 30 from the American Education System chart. Take a little time to look at the gaps and guess which word form you need for each question. So what word form do you think goes in the gaps? Well, in question 28 and 29, a preposition of is before the space. So this means that you probably need a noun or a noun group after of. However, for question 30, a verb followed by an object is probably needed. Why? Well, because every other step of the flowchart is written in this way. So taking a few moments to predict the word form is always a good idea. Okay, once you understand the topic of the flowchart and what the word form of the missing words might be, it's time to scan the passage for the keywords you have identified in step 1. In other words, you need to find the section or a paragraph of the reading passage which relates to the flowchart. For example, in this flowchart, you could scan for educational words such as preschool, kindergarten, or university. Here's a paragraph from the text. As you can see, it contains many keywords from the flowchart, such as preschool, kindergarten, or primary school. This is definitely the paragraph where you will find the answer. Once you have located the relevant part of the text, you need to read it intensively. In other words, read slowly and carefully to find the details you are looking for. When you find the answer, remember to check that the answer has no more than the maximum number of words allowed. So, for example, no more than 3 words. And that it fits the gap logically and grammatically. So if you read the example paragraph carefully, you will see that the missing words needed for the gaps are primary school for question 28, 12th grade for question 29. In question 30, you need a verb as discussed before. So you need the verb take. So here's the summary of the final answers again. 28, primary school. Question 29, 12th grade. And for the last question, number 30, it's take the set. Well, now you have learned some useful strategies for answering flowchart completion questions.